I used to believe fear was something learned, something taught by parents, movies, whispered stories told around campfires. I believed courage was simply the absence of imagination, and that those who claimed to see things in the dark were just people who wanted attention. That belief died the night the darkness answered us back. It began, as most terrible things do, with laughter. We were parked on the shoulder of Route 117, the engine still ticking as it cooled, the headlights cutting a pale corridor through the trees. Pines rose on both sides like cathedral pillars, their tops lost in a low, crawling fog that clung to the road as if it had been poured there deliberately. The air smelled of wet earth and rusted leaves, cold, sharper than the weather forecast had promised. Ethan laughed and slapped the dashboard. "Man, you see this place?" he said. "People will really believe anything if you tell them it's haunted." I laughed too. I wish I hadn't. My name is Caleb Warren, and this is the story of the night that taught me there are places that don't need belief to exist. We had known each other since childhood. Ethan Pike, Noah Bell, and me. 3 boys who grew into men together in the same quiet Pennsylvania town, testing our limits in ways that never quite crossed the line into real danger. Cliff jumps into rivers, abandoned houses, forest trails after midnight. Fear was a puzzle to us, something to be solved, mocked, broken. By our late 20s, that curiosity had turned into a ritual. Once every few months, we chose a place people avoided and stayed there overnight. No phones except for emergencies. No leaving early. If we committed all the way. It was always Ethan who found the locations. "Ever heard of Gravesend Hollow?" he asked one night over drinks. Noah frowned. "Sounds fake." "That's because you don't read old county records," Ethan said, grinning. "Private cemetery. Shut down in the 1920s. Buried deep in state land. Locals say it's cursed." I rolled my eyes. "Cursed by boredom." Ethan leaned closer. "They say there's one grave nobody touches, one that's sealed off with iron fencing. People who mess with it don't come back the same." That should have been the moment we stopped talking. Instead, Noah smiled. "So when are we going?" Gravesend Hollow wasn't marked on any tourist map. No signs, no warnings, just a narrow gravel turnoff swallowed by trees. The cemetery itself lay half a mile into the forest, hidden behind a collapsed stone wall that looked more like a boundary drawn by habit than intention. By the time we arrived, it was nearly 1:40 a.m. The fog thickened as we stepped out of the car, wrapping around our legs, dampening our shoes. Our breath showed in faint white bursts. Somewhere far away, an owl called, then fell silent. Noah adjusted the strap on his camera bag. "If this place is haunted, I want proof." Ethan held up a small digital recorder. "Audio doesn't lie." I said nothing. A strange heaviness had settled in my chest, a pressure I couldn't explain. It felt like standing too close to deep water. The iron gate creaked open with a sound that scraped along my spine. Inside, rows of headstones leaned at odd angles. Some cracked clean in half, others swallowed nearly to the top by the earth. Names were barely legible, dates blurred by time. Fog drifted low between the graves, thick enough that our feet vanished when we looked down. "This is incredible," Ethan said, stepping inside. "Look at this place." "Incredible how?" I asked. "Incredibly dead." He laughed again. We walked slowly, careful not to trip over uneven ground or sunken plots. The silence felt wrong, too complete, like the forest was holding its breath. Ethan broke it. "There's a story about one man buried here, late 1800s. No family, no church. Noah glanced up from his camera. Every cemetery has stories. Yeah, Ethan said, but this one's special. I stopped walking. Special how? He pointed deeper into the fog. There's a grave back there, surrounded by iron spikes. They say whatever's buried there didn't want to stay buried. Noah snorted. You're serious? Dead serious. I should have argued. I should have insisted we turn back. Instead, I followed. The iron fencing appeared suddenly, emerging from the fog like the ribs of some ancient animal. Tall, blackened spikes curved inward at the top, sharp enough to catch moonlight. Inside stood a single grave marker, a stone pillar, taller than the rest, its inscription worn smooth, as if someone had tried very hard to erase it. The air changed inside that circle, warmer, heavier. It smelled wrong, sweet and rotten at the same time. Noah swallowed. Okay, that's unsettling. Ethan stepped closer, recorder held high. This is it. I felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to leave. Ethan, I said. Maybe we don't. Relax, he cut in. It's just a grave. He leaned toward the fence, peering inside. Nothing happened. He laughed. See? Absolutely nothing. Then he did something none of us expected. I dare you, he said, looking at Noah and then at me. Touch it. Noah shook his head. That's stupid. Come on, Ethan said. We've done worse. I felt my mouth open before my brain could stop it. We said we wouldn't mess with graves. Ethan turned to me, smiling. Since when do you believe in rules? Noah sighed. Fine, but we don't go inside. There's no way inside, Ethan said, locked tight. He crouched near the base of the fence and brushed aside leaves. There, he said. A gap. I stared at it. A narrow opening beneath the iron bars, barely large enough for a person to crawl through. My heart began to pound. You're not serious, Noah said. Ethan's eyes gleamed. I am. Before either of us could stop him, he dropped to his knees and squeezed through the opening. The moment his body crossed the boundary, the forest changed. The fog thickened, rising higher. The air grew still. No insects, no wind. Ethan stood up inside the fence and laughed. Winner, he said. See? Still alive. Then he looked at us. Your turn. We didn't follow right away. I don't like this, Noah whispered. Neither did I. But something about Ethan's voice felt wrong. Flat. Distant. Against my better judgment, I crouched and crawled through the gap, the iron scraping against my jacket. Noah followed, muttering under his breath. Inside the enclosure, the temperature rose sharply. Sweat prickled my skin. The smell intensified. It felt like being inside a closed room that had once held something alive. What's the big deal? Noah said nervously. It's just a stone. Ethan wasn't listening. He was staring at the pillar. I heard there's something behind it, he said. Something worth seeing. Ethan, I said. Let's go. He turned, smiling. Just one more thing. He took Noah's camera from his hands. I'll show you, he said. When I bring it back, you'll understand. Then he disappeared behind the grave marker. Minutes passed. No sound. No footsteps. Ethan? Noah called. Nothing. A pressure built in my ears, like descending too quickly underwater. I took a step forward and froze. Something brushed past me. Cold. Fast. I spun around. Nothing was there. Noah grabbed my arm. Did you feel that? Before I could answer, there was a sudden tap on Noah's shoulder. He screamed and turned. Ethan stood there. We nearly collapsed with relief. Don't do that, Noah said, laughing shakily. You scared the hell out of us. Ethan held out the camera. Look, he said softly. Noah frowned. Look at what? The photo. Noah raised the camera, Pressing the playback button, the screen lit up and showed Ethan dead. I didn't scream when I saw the image. That's the detail that still haunts me. The screen glowed pale blue in Noah's shaking hands, illuminating his face from below like a campfire story gone wrong. The photo was sharp, too sharp. Ethan's body lay twisted at an unnatural angle, eyes wide open, mouth stretched as if frozen in the middle of a word he never got to finish. His skin had a grayish hue, not the pale of moonlight, but the dull color of something emptied out. The timestamp said the photo had been taken less than a minute ago. "That's not funny," Noah whispered. "Ethan, this isn't funny." I looked up. Ethan was gone. The space where he had been standing was empty, swallowed by fog and shadow. The iron fence loomed around us like a trap we had willingly crawled into. My heart began to race. "Caleb," Noah said, his voice breaking. "Where did he go?" I didn't answer, because the truth was clawing its way up my throat, and I wasn't ready to let it out. We searched the enclosure in a panic, calling Ethan's name, circling the stone pillar again and again. There was nowhere he could have gone. No exits except the narrow gap beneath the fence, and that gap was still blocked by fallen leaves, undisturbed. "He can't just disappear," Noah said. "He can't." I touched the stone pillar. It was warm. I yanked my hand back as if burned. "Caleb?" Noah asked. "This thing—" My voice trembled. "It's warm." That was when the smell hit us fully. Rot. Old earth. Something sweet and sickening underneath. Noah gagged. "We need to get out. Now." We crawled through the gap, tearing our clothes on the iron spikes, not caring. The moment my body crossed back into the cemetery, the air shifted. Cooler. Lighter. Like surfacing after nearly drowning. But Ethan didn't follow. We ran. Not toward the car. Away from the enclosure, deeper into the graveyard, driven by blind terror and the certainty that if we turned our backs on that place, something would follow. Fog swallowed everything beyond a few feet. Headstones blurred past, like teeth in a closing mouth. My foot caught on a sunken grave and I fell hard, knocking the breath from my lungs. Noah pulled me up. "Get up! Get up!" Somewhere behind us, something moved. Not footsteps. Dragging. Wet. Slow. I didn't look back. We burst through the broken stone wall and didn't stop running until the trees thinned and the outline of the road appeared ahead like a promise. We scrambled into the car, slamming the doors, fumbling with the keys. The engine roared to life. Only then did we breathe. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The fog lingered at the edge of the headlights, refusing to follow us onto the road, as if bound by some invisible line. "What do we do?" Noah finally asked. I stared straight ahead. "We call the police." The state troopers arrived just before dawn. They listened. They nodded. They exchanged glances that said shock and skepticism in equal measure. When they found Ethan's body inside the enclosure, they stopped asking questions. He was lying exactly as he appeared in the photograph. The official report would later say, cardiac arrest, acute stress, panic-induced failure. No mention of the fence. No mention of the warmth of the stone. No explanation for how he ended up inside a locked enclosure with no sign of forced entry. Noah and I were released by noon. The sun was up. Birds sang. The world pretended nothing had happened. But something had changed. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face on the camera screen. Worse, I heard his voice. "Look." I started noticing things. Shadows that lingered too long. Reflections that didn't move when I did. A heaviness in the air when night fell. as if darkness itself was waiting for something. Noah called me constantly. "You feel it too, right?" he asked one night. "Like something followed us home." I wanted to say no. I couldn't. A week after the funeral, Noah showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked awful. Dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking. "I checked the camera again," he said. My stomach dropped. "Why would you do that?" "Because there are more photos." He handed me the camera. There were dozens. Images of Gravesend Hollow taken from impossible angles. From inside the fog. From behind headstones we never stood near. And in every photo, Ethan, standing, watching, closer in each one. The last photo was taken at 3:17 a.m. the previous night. It showed Ethan standing behind Noah's bedroom door. We went back to Gravesend Hollow. I don't know why. Fear, maybe. Or the desperate hope that understanding something gives you control over it. The caretaker met us at the gate. A thin, older man, with eyes that looked permanently tired. "You shouldn't be here," he said before we spoke. "You know about the enclosure," I said. He nodded slowly. "Everyone does. Eventually." He told us the truth. The man buried there had been obsessed with death, studied it, collected it. When he died, people swore they still saw him wandering the cemetery, drawing others toward his grave. "They sealed it," the caretaker said. "Iron, chains, prayers." "What happens to people who go inside?" Noah asked. The man met our eyes. "They don't always leave." We never told him about the photos. We left before sunset. That night, Noah called me screaming. "He's here!" he cried. "Ethan's here!" I heard the same dragging sound through the phone. Then silence. They found Noah the next morning. Heart failure, camera in his hand. One final photo. It showed me, standing behind him, smiling. After Noah's death, the world decided everything had an explanation. Heart failure, stress, trauma, survivor's guilt. Words stacked neatly on official paper, typed in clean fonts by people who slept soundly at night. I didn't. I knew better. Because Noah hadn't been alone when he died. And because whatever had taken Ethan had learned something new. It had learned how to use us. I didn't attend Noah's funeral. That's the truth I never say out loud. I stood across the street instead, watching strangers file into the church, their faces solemn, respectful, untouched by understanding. They whispered condolences to Noah's parents, hugged his sister, spoke about how young he was, how tragic it all seemed. None of them knew he had been screaming into a phone when he died. None of them knew he had been staring at something wearing my face. I left before the service ended. I couldn't risk seeing Ethan there too. The camera haunted me. The police had returned it after they finished their investigation. Nothing unusual, they said. Just photographs. They didn't see what I saw. At night, the camera powered itself on. The screen glowed faintly on my kitchen table, lighting the room with that same sickly blue light from Gravesend Hollow. I tried removing the batteries, tried locking it in a drawer, tried throwing it into the river once. It always came back, always waiting on the table when I returned. And every time I checked it, there were new photos, always taken from places I had been, always showing someone standing behind me. Sometimes Ethan, sometimes Noah, sometimes me. I started recording everything. Audio logs, written notes, timestamps. If this thing wanted confusion, I would give it documentation. Log 14, 2:41 a.m. Heard footsteps in the hallway. Apartment door still locked. No shadows under doorframe. Log 19, 4:03 a.m. Mirror reflection delayed by approximately 2 seconds. Log 27, 1:12 a.m. Someone breathing next to bed. Did not see anyone when I turned. I stopped sleeping entirely after log 31. The caretaker's words replayed endlessly in my head. They don't always leave. I needed answers. Not rumors. Not folklore. Something tangible. County records were stored in a dusty municipal building downtown. Old microfilm, handwritten logs, death certificates dating back over a century. Gravesend Hollow appeared again and again. Unexplained deaths, missing persons, sudden illness after trespassing, and always one common detail. One sealed grave. No name, just a date. The man buried there wasn't a devil worshiper. That was the lie people told themselves to sleep at night. He was a mortician, a collector of final moments. According to archived journals confiscated after his death, he believed the soul lingered briefly after the body failed. That fear, confusion, and disbelief created a residue, something that could be captured, shaped, preserved. He experimented. On the dying, on the dead, on himself. His final entry ended mid-sentence. I didn't notice the footsteps following me home anymore. They had become normal. What terrified me was the silence, because silence meant it was close enough to breathe quietly. The first time it spoke to me clearly, I was in the shower, water pounding my ears, steam fogging the glass. My name came from directly behind me. Caleb. I froze. Slowly, I wiped the mirror clean. I was alone. But the fog spelled my name again, letter by letter, as if traced by an invisible finger. Caleb, it said again, this time closer, familiar. It used Noah's voice. I ran, out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the street barefoot. I didn't stop until I reached a diner glowing like a lighthouse in the dark. Inside, everything was loud, alive, human. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. Then I saw the reflection in the window. Someone was sitting behind me in the booth, smiling. I drove straight to Gravesend Hollow that night. I didn't bring the camera. I brought fire, gasoline, matches. A plan born of desperation and certainty. If it lived there, I would end it there. The cemetery welcomed me with silence. The iron enclosure waited exactly where it always had. Unchanged. Unbothered. I poured gasoline along the fence, around the pillar, soaking the earth until the smell burned my nose. Enough, I said aloud. You don't get to follow me anymore. Something laughed. Not from the enclosure, from inside my head. The flames didn't behave normally. They burned downward, into the ground. The earth screamed. I swear it did. The fog twisted violently, spiraling inward, dragging shadows with it. Faces formed briefly in the smoke. Ethan. Noah. Dozens I didn't recognize. And then, hands. Hands reached up through the soil, clawing at the iron bars, scraping metal, peeling skin from bone. I stumbled back, screaming, as something pulled itself halfway into the world. Not fully human, not fully dead. It wore Ethan's face like a mask, then Noah's, then mine. You brought me more, it whispered. I woke up in a hospital, burns on my arms, smoke inhalation. The fire department report claimed I had suffered a breakdown and attempted arson. They sealed Gravesend Hollow permanently after that night. Concrete, steel, surveillance. But they didn't understand. It doesn't need the cemetery anymore. I showed it the way out. I see it in crowds now, in reflections, in photos taken by strangers. Always closer, always smiling, learning, waiting. And if you're reading this, if you've laughed at stories like this before, if you've ever stood somewhere dark and felt alone, you're not. It remembers faces, and it's very good at wearing them. There is a moment, right before the end of things, when clarity arrives. Not peace, not acceptance, just clarity. I am writing this because the clarity has finally come, and because I know now that silence only feeds it. If you are reading this, then I have already failed. The hospital discharged me after 3 days. Stress-induced psychosis, the doctor said, careful with his words, like naming a dangerous animal without wanting to summon it. Your mind created patterns where none exist. I nodded, signed the papers, smiled when required. I didn't tell him about the fingerprints on the inside of my window. I didn't tell him about the camera that was waiting on my kitchen table when I got home. Dry, clean, batteries full. I didn't tell him that when I checked the photos, there was a new one, taken from inside my hospital room. The thing doesn't rush. That's what most people misunderstand about predators. Could have taken me weeks ago, months ago, maybe even years ago. But it waits, watching how you breathe, how you move, how you react to fear. It learns which memories hurt the most, which faces you trust, which parts of yourself are easiest to hollow out. I stopped trying to run. Running implies escape. There is none. Gravesend Hollow was sealed, but the deaths didn't stop. A park ranger found in his cabin, eyes open, mouth frozen in a scream. Heart failure. A teenager trespassing near the perimeter fence collapsed mid-step. Cardiac arrest. A woman who swore she saw her dead husband standing at the foot of her bed. Every report sounded the same. Every photo looked wrong. Faces caught mid-expression, as if something just outside the frame had leaned in too close. I understood the truth when I finally reread the mortician's journals carefully. He wasn't trying to summon something. He was trying to become something. A container. A mirror. A place where fear could echo forever. He failed. But failure doesn't mean harmless. It means unfinished. The thing that crawled out of that grave doesn't hunt bodies. It hunts certainty. It waits for the moment you decide you know what's real. That moment of arrogance. That laugh in the dark. Then it steps closer. It visited me openly for the first time a month after the fire. I was sitting at my desk, writing these pages, when the room grew warm. Not hot, just wrong. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. I knew exactly who it was pretending to be. "Caleb," it said gently. "You did so well." Ethan's voice, Noah's laugh under it, my tone beneath both. "What do you want?" I asked. "To finish," it replied. It doesn't look like a monster when it wants to be believed. It looks like relief, like understanding, like the moment you realize you're not alone after all. It showed me images, not on the camera this time, but directly inside my head. People standing at graves, laughing, daring each other to step closer, touching what should not be touched. Every time it learned something new. "You don't need the cemetery anymore," I said. It smiled. "No," it agreed. "I need witnesses." That's when I understood my role. Not victim, not survivor, messenger. The thing doesn't spread by touch or place. It spreads by attention, by belief, by stories. Every time someone listens and thinks, "That's ridiculous," it leans closer. I tried to end it properly, not with fire, with absence. I drove deep into the mountains, to a place with no cell service, no roads marked on maps. I left the camera behind, left my phone, left everything that could record or reflect. I sat in the dark for 3 nights. On the 4th, it arrived anyway, because it didn't need tools anymore. It had learned me. It wore my face perfectly. Not the face people recognize, the private one. The one I only see in mirrors when I think no one's watching. "You can stop this," It said, "Just don't tell anyone." I laughed. The same laugh Ethan used that night. The laugh that started everything. So I'm telling you, not because I think it will save me, but because knowing changes things. If you've ever mocked the dark, if you've ever felt watched and dismissed it, if you've ever stood somewhere quiet and thought you were alone, you weren't. You aren't. And it already knows your face. The camera just took another photo. I'm not holding it. I'm not even in the room. The photo shows you. Reading this. Looking up. Just now. It's standing behind you. Don't turn around. It hates that.